Hello again and welcome to another thrilling episode of The Really Show. I'm your host, Aaron Ross. Today's episode, Uncivil Rebels, Part 3. The Incredible Life of Robert Smalls. Hey, don't forget, if you like our shows, we would love it if you would subscribe. Robert Smalls was the son of Lydia Polite, a slave housekeeper in the home of John McKee. Although it was never known who his father really was, it was strongly believed that he was the progeny of Henry McKee, son of John McKee. This may also help offer an explanation as to why Robert wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. He often played with white children and on many occasions would stay out past the 7 p.m. curfew set for slaves in the town. And every time, Henry McKee would collect him and pay the fine. Go, Daddy, go. As he got older, Robert's mother became quite concerned that this could lead to ever more precarious situation. Eventually, she asked McKee to rent out Smalls to work for a small wage in nearby Charleston. Each week, he was allowed to keep $1 of his wages, the rest going to his enslaver. As Robert got older, he began working on cargo ships, showing great aptitude, which allowed him to work his way up to pilot. The ship he piloted was called the Planter, and soon after the beginning of the Civil War was commandeered by the Confederates. Due to his skills, he remained pilot and was trusted by the white crew. Now, here's where the story gets good. In 1862, for reasons still unclear, the white crew left the ship in the wee hours of the morning to visit the nearby town, leaving Smalls and a few other black crew members to watch the ship. Their mistake and Smalls' opportunity. He didn't waste any time and made an historic break for freedom. Robert, along with the other black crew members, quickly gathered their families aboard and set off. Smalls donned the captain's coat and cap, and with the cover of darkness and knowing exactly the proper signals to give, sailed past the Confederate checkpoints without incident. This daring crew of heroes had also decided that, if discovered, rather than being taken alive, they would blow the ship up. By daybreak, the Planter and Smalls' crew had reached the Federal blockade of the harbor, lowering the Confederate flag and raising a white sheet. They had made it. Boom! Robert also provided extremely valuable information as to the outlay of mines in the Charleston harbor to the Union Army. These daring heroics were written up in the June 14, 1862 edition of Harper's Weekly. Following this daring escape, Robert Smalls, alongside Frederick Douglass, was able to petition President Lincoln to allow blacks to fight for the Union. Smalls also continued to pilot the Planter for the Union as a volunteer until he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in Company B of the 33rd Regiment U.S. Colored Troops. Wow. He went on to fight in 17 battles and is credited with recruiting 5,000 black soldiers. And later, he was designated a major general in the South Carolina militia. That's not quite the finish to Robert's story. Robert Smalls went into business and then politics. He served in both houses of the South Carolina legislature and in 1874 was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Another amazing part of Robert Smalls' story is that in 1865, he returned to purchase the McKee house where he was once a slave, using an appropriation he received for taking the Planter. And in another interesting twist, when his former enslaver's wife, who was suffering from dementia, came wandering into the house, not realizing that she was no longer the owner, Robert Smalls allowed her to live out the rest of her days in the home. But perhaps the highest honor paid to this great American was the 2007 commissioning of the Major General Robert Smalls, an Army logistics support vessel, in a ceremony in Baltimore's Inner Harbor attended by several of his descendants. It is the only Army ship named for an African American. If you have any comments or questions, please write about it in the comments area. Here's a question. Do you think Robert Smalls' story should be made into a movie? I do. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. What?